recorded. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Karen Seligman. I'm the Senior Director of the Public Affairs Council, and we're delighted that all of you are joining us today for this member orientation webinar. We know that we are all living and working in strange times, so I will at the outset apologize for any lawnmower noise, children, or other banging you may hear during this call, but we'll do our best to make sure that our time together is productive, and by the end of this session, you'll have a much better idea of who the Public Affairs Council is, but more importantly, how we can be of assistance to you and your team, both now during the quarantine, but throughout the year, and more importantly, throughout your entire public affairs career. So in terms of some logistics, here are the faces of the voices that you'll be hearing during our session. That's me at the top left. You'll also be hearing from my colleague, Stephanie Helsing, who is our membership manager. You'll also hear from Emily Wallace, who's our member engagement manager, and Kristen Brackmeyer, who is our director of PAC and government relations. In terms of how we'll be spending our time together, we'll be giving you an introduction to who the council is and the kind of role that we take on in the public affairs community. Then we'll get into the meat of the session where we'll talk about the resources and services available to you as a council member. And our communications colleagues always tell us that people remember things in threes. So our big three are expertise, education, and community. We'll be talking about each of those in detail. And then finally, we'll give you a sense of how you can get involved by hearing about a case study where Kristen Brackmeyer was able to give some very specific advice to one of our member organizations. So that hopefully will give you a sense of how you can engage with the council. And in terms of logistics, before I introduce this very attractive, though not socially distanced group of council staff, I do want to point out that if you have any questions during the session, you can use the chat box, which if you're on your screen is on the lower left-hand portion of your screen. You can put questions there, or if you prefer to send an email either during this session or at any other time throughout the year, you can shoot us an email at membership@pac.org. That's membership@pac.org. So this is an introduction to who the council is. This is our staff in our DC office, which we are missing right now. And there are a total of 23 of us in the DC office, and then we have an additional 2 staff members who work out of our office in Brussels. That Brussels office serves not only folks who are based in Brussels itself, but also the rest of the EU. And that office, which has been open for about 7 or 8 years now, not only helps EU-based organizations who are trying to get involved in the public affairs community here in Washington, but also US-based organizations who have some dealings in the EU and are trying to figure out some of the challenges that are unique to doing public affairs over there. Our organization is really quite unusual. Though we're on K Street, we are both a nonpartisan and non-political organization. We've been around for quite a while. Since 1954, we were founded at the urging of President Eisenhower, who at that time really hoped that the business community could engage with governments and with communities in a holistic and strategic way. And so over the years, we have morphed from an organization of about 20 large corporations to what we are today. We have about 725 member organizations who range from Fortune 10 companies down to startups, large and small trade associations, advocacy groups, educational institutions, and because the membership is held by the organization and anybody within that organization can consider themselves a member and then be engaged with the organization, that translates to more than 10,000 individual public affairs professionals throughout the world. We are a small staff, but we punch above our weight class. Even though we only have 23 people, we hold more than 100 educational and networking events throughout the course of the year, and we'll get into some more specifics about that. You get a sense of, just by glancing at some of these familiar logos, that we do have quite a diverse group of members that are part of the council organization. Some of these are household names, others aren't. And so let me tell you a little bit about who these groups are. So I mentioned when we first started, we were a 100% corporate organization, and throughout the years, we've become much more diverse. So now about half of our members are corporations. Those range from, some of the logos that you saw from earlier on the earlier slide, but it also includes startup companies as well who are really trying to navigate new public affairs marketplaces. About a third of our members come from the association sector. These are both trade and professional associations, and they range everything from the biggies like the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and the pharmaceutical manufacturers down to, and I kid you not, the New York State Funeral Directors are also a member of the Public Affairs Council. So there's quite a diversity there, as is diversity in the consultant sector. The service providers who have chosen to be a member of the council are everyone from folks who are providing PAC and grassroots software and lobbying services to large public affairs firms or smaller digital advocacy firms. And then that tiny pie slice you see that says non-corporate, that's made up of, I think, some of the most unique and interesting members of the council. These include universities like Stanford and Duke. They include advocacy groups like Resolve, which is a patient advocacy groups for folks facing infertility. It's also a place where government agencies, we've had members of the branches of the military join. We have had labor unions join. So much of the council philosophy harkens back to the idea that good ideas come from anywhere. So by bringing together a diverse set of people, you're going to hear ideas and be exposed to new concepts that perhaps other sectors have great expertise in, but you may not have been exposed to in the past. So we think as you get more engaged with the council, both in person and virtually, you're going to get a chance to interact with some new and very interesting people. So while the council office is based in DC, and about half of those 10,000 individual members are based in our area, about a third are in the DC area, about half are based in other parts of the US, and a growing portion of our members are based outside of the US. It's about 13% are internationally based. A pretty good chunk of those are based in the EU, but we do have presence in other countries throughout the world. So here is our mission statement, and for any of you who've been involved with crafting a mission statement, you know how truly challenging it is to try to encapsulate the essence of your organization into a short and pithy statement. And I put ours here not only because it represented so much time and effort on the part of our staff, but more because I think it'll give you a sense of kind of the multi-pronged mission of the council, that we are here really to not only advance the field and make sure that the field is keeping on top of all the changing trends in the world, but that we're providing you the tools and resources that are going to help you as public affairs executives to not only achieve your business goals, but also your professional goals. So in a nutshell, we're here really to advocate for the profession. We're here to help you make sure that your organization is being successful, and we're finally here to make sure that you as an individual public affairs professional are achieving your goals. So we hope that you're going to be with us through all phases of your career. And we have professional development and networking and educational opportunities for you wherever you are now and in the future. So while that's our heavily wordsmithed mission statement, our tagline, which was even harder to come up with, is manage your world, which is a pretty audacious goal that we have for our organization, but it's one that very much guides our work, that we are here to help you manage your world wherever that world is geographically, and wherever it takes you in terms of your public affairs responsibility. So if you are a PAC manager at a small trade association, we're going to help you to be as successful as you can in that world. If you have global responsibilities for corporate communications, social responsibility, and lobbying, we're going to help you on that front as well. So let me get into some specific ways about how we do this. If you look at the range of benefits that are included in your membership, as I mentioned earlier, these are the three areas that we're going to talk about. First, we'll be talking about expertise. Second, executive education, and third, community. So let me dive into expertise. Let me back up for just a second, though, to talk about our areas of expertise, because when we call ourselves the Public Affairs Council, yet there is no universally agreed upon definition of what public affairs is. So in our world, when we talk about public affairs, it really encapsulates all of the external relations functions, save things like marketing and sales. So it's interacting with government entities, whether those are at the local, state, federal, or international level. It's also political involvement type activities like grassroots and PACs, and then also communications related fields like digital and social media and traditional communications, but also other pieces like corporate social responsibility and issues management. So while you may not have all of these functions organized in the same section of your organizational chart, we see them as ones that work or should be working in coordination with one another. And so in our offerings, you're going to hear an awful lot about how to integrate various functions. So for example, how can your lobbyists more effectively talk about what you're doing with corporate social responsibility? How are you integrating your PAC and your grassroots programs? How is your communication strategy helping you to leverage what you're doing with ally development? So that's a thread that you'll be hearing throughout everything that the council does. So we have deep expertise in all of these areas, and we also have unique expertise in that very last bullet item about measurement and evaluation of the function. So we know that often your HR department doesn't quite know what to do with your department when they're trying to benchmark who you are and how you should be compensated and what are meaningful measurements that you can put in place to not only plan your public affairs activities, but more importantly, measure how effective they are. So we do have a great deal of knowledge in the measurement and evaluation of the public affairs practice. So we'll be talking about that a bit as well. So when we talk about expertise, it really, the essence of the council are these staff experts. These folks who are based both in our DC office, in our European office, all come to the council with on-the-ground public affairs experience, whether it's running communications for a large trade association, whether it's working on the Hill, being a member of the media, doing international consulting. All these folks bring really tremendous expertise, not only what they have developed in their previous public affairs role, but they knit that together with the treasure trove of benchmarking data that we have at the council. They also integrate it with all the learnings that they've developed working with our hundreds of member organizations. And so when you get a chance to interact with our staff experts, you'll see that they're multifaceted, that in some ways they are consultants and teachers who are trying to share best practices with you. They are editors and researchers who can help make sure that whatever piece of communication you're putting together is accurate and effective and impactful. There's sometimes, therapists and cheerleaders, because we know that doing public affairs can be a challenging business. But at the end of the day, I think they're often detectives. They get a real charge out of hunting for the answers to your questions, no matter where they may come from. So just to give you a little sense of what this team looks like, Kristen, can you tell us just a little bit about your background and what you were doing prior to joining us heading our PAC practice?
Sure. Hi, everyone. This is Kristen. As Karen mentioned, I'm the director of our PAC and government relations practice areas here at the council. And prior to joining the council, which I guess was just under 3 years ago now, it's gone fast. I spent the early parts of my career at 3 separate trade associations, working in their government relations department, doing a lot of grassroots advocacy, and then managing their political action committees. So most recently, before moving over to the council, I was with the Consumer Technology Association, and then prior to that, spent almost 4 years with the American Association of Orthopedic Surgeons. So I certainly draw on a lot of the just experience and best practices that I see across the community and working with our diverse array of member organizations. But a lot of the guidance and expertise that I am able to provide also comes from just really being in the trenches and, having experienced a lot of PAC management, grassroots government relations processes myself, and kind of being able to pull from that experience to help counsel our members.
Great, thanks, Kristen. And I think this team of staff experts is not only probably what makes the council unique, even in the world of associations, but is the area where you're going to see the greatest return on your membership investment. And it's really because these folks are available to answer any type of question, large and small. This slide has a sense of just some of the types of questions that they get on a regular basis. And they can really handle questions in any of those public affairs areas that I outlined earlier, whether it's PAC or grassroots or global public affairs. There are a lot of questions they get routinely. I think Kristen would be a rich woman if we gave her $1 for every time that someone asked for some sample PAC solicitation letters. However, they really also, frankly, enjoy the challenge of getting unusual questions. And certainly we're getting a lot of unusual questions these days, things like, how can I think about my PAC solicitation plan, when folks are facing furloughs or layoffs, or my industry is being severely challenged right now? How are we going to decide? How do you lobby about non-coronavirus related issues in this time? How can you use technology to better get your public affairs message out? Because that's what we're forced to do right now. So any question, large or small, these folks will get back to you within one business day, either with an answer to your question or an update on how they're going about trying to get that answer, whether that's calling on other council members just one-on-one, connecting you with another council member, or anonymously putting out a call for information from other members of the council community, because we do find it is a very giving and open community, especially when it comes to just figuring out best practices. They're also available to be guest speakers for your meetings. We can do these not only in person, we do lots of Washington fly-ins, but they're also available to do it virtually. And so as you're having conference calls for your grassroots advocates, or you're trying to figure out how you're going to replace what was going to be an in-person event with a virtual event, they are willing and able, and really all terrific speakers, to answer a host of public affairs topical areas. So while we have this incredible team of people on staff, none of them are attorneys. And so we have secured as part of your membership Ken Gross, who is a partner at the very prominent law firm of Skadden Arps, to answer your questions about PACs and campaign finance, lobbying registration, and ethics. Kristen, can you talk a little bit about how Ken's service works?
Sure. So the way that Ken can be contacted is either through myself or any one of our staff members, or also directly as well, just by simply identifying yourself as the council member. And then, I mean, the amount of questions and the breadth of questions that he answers is very wide-ranging. But just a few examples of the types of things that he routinely gets asked are things such as, you know, our PAC is looking to hold a raffle. How do we do this and maintain compliance? Or, you know, we're doing XYZ work with this agency. Does that trigger lobbying disclosure reporting requirements? Just earlier this week, I, on behalf of a member, asked him about someone was wondering if they could lobby their spouse, who is a Senate staffer, and how that would work in terms of reporting, or you know, whether that's even legal or not. So it's very wide-ranging in terms of things that folks ask him about. He can get into very specific, like, organizational issues that would kind of push over into the attorney-client privilege realm. But he can tell you when he recommends that you seek counsel, which, you know, to be honest, is sometimes the most helpful for people, because they're really just trying to gauge, is this something that, you know, could potentially be an issue that we need to seek further guidance with counsel on, or is this something that's pretty routine and can be answered by Ken? So he's very, very quick to respond, and he is just a wonderful asset. So I certainly encourage you, whenever you have any compliance issues, to keep that benefit in mind.
Great. Thanks, Kristen. We also do some research and benchmarking reports that are unique to the public affairs field. We just came out last year with our PAC benchmarking report. We have separate versions for both the corporate community and the association community that have some really terrific and otherwise very difficult to find benchmarking information about PAC fundraising and management. So when you're especially trying to make the case to your team to implement a new PAC-related program, gathering some of the data from the benchmarking reports can be very helpful. We also have a number of white papers. So the image you see on the far right is one about best practices for managing government affairs in the EU. And these reports can be downloaded from our website just by entering your user ID, which we'll talk about a little bit later in the call. These are available for free. And actually, our PAC benchmarking report is one that we used to charge for, but that is a new member service where you can download it for free. We also have the data available where we can slice and dice it for you. So you may say, Karen, that information that you have in the overall benchmarking report is great, but I'm really interested in just seeing the results from other companies in my fortune sector, or in a similar band of number of employees. How does my PAC compare with what organizations who responded to the survey said? And so that can be very helpful as well. We have similar data from other from other council benchmarking reports where we can run similar types of data analyses. We also do some other original research that surveys not just the public affairs community, but rather looks at opinions of the general public. So some of the data points that you see on the slide here are from our recent public affairs pulse survey that tries to gather some information about things like, how does the general public view President Trump's tweets, and does it change their opinion of organizations that may be the target of some of those tweets? or if they have some concerns about what's happening in Washington, what does that really mean? Where do they see are some of the largest challenges or pain points about when they think about Washington? And what we found out, the most far and away, the largest concern was politicians who felt that they were perceived as being more concerned about being reelected than making best decisions. So this is the type of research when we publish it, and often we'll partner with large polling firms like Morning Consult, we will send that information out to you and to the membership at large. We have a sister organization called the Foundation for Public Affairs, which is a 501c3, and it's been around nearly as long as the council has. And while we are continuing our mission of coming up with some primary research about the field of public affairs, we have also enhance the mission to also look at the pipeline of talent that is coming in to be the future of the public affairs profession. And so we are now, as of last year, focused even more on diversity and inclusion in the field. And we're doing that not only through work that the council is doing on its own, but also partnering with other groups that are working to try to make sure that people who, for example, are working on Capitol Hill really are reflective of folks throughout the country, because we know, for example, that many folks on the Hill often end up joining the public affairs profession. So we're really doing some interesting and exciting work under the auspices of the foundation. The foundation has also published what we call Public Affairs Trend Labs, which are available off of our website. We hear a lot of talk about, for example, the power of visual storytelling, or the fact that we want our organizations to be thought of as thought leaders. But what does that really mean? And what do those terms look like in practice? And so we have 2 public affairs trend labs that give some case studies and actual examples of ways to implement some of these ideas throughout your public affairs work. We also have, through our communications team, news and analysis that's going to come to you on a regular basis. Impact is our award-winning monthly newsletter, which hits your inboxes usually mid-month, but also as we have other either new data to share or really interesting information that we think that the community should know about, we will send that out to you in special alerts, either via social media, via email, or through our online community Council Connect, which we'll be talking about shortly. And we have a brand new service where we're partnering with Nathan Gonzalez, who's the editor and publisher of Inside Elections. Kristen, can you talk a little bit about that service?
Sure. So with the Inside Elections partnership, Nathan quarterly releases, he works with us to create PowerPoint slides that kind of showing what's here on the screen, provide an update on the state of the election and political races throughout the country, race ratings and changes, and kind of high-level information about his election prognosticating. So that is released to our members, like I said, on a quarterly basis, and it's available for download. So we really encourage members to take that information and put it in your own presentations to your internal and external stakeholders, whether that's, at a corporate board meeting or to grassroots advocates or PAC donors. It's a great way to just provide some kind of election insight and intelligence to your own communities and use it for, multiple purposes internally and externally. And then he also writes a monthly column in our flagship newsletter, e-newsletter Impact. And that is a unique column to Impact. So it's separate from anything that he would write for Roll Call or for the Inside Elections webpage. It's unique content that's provided and pushed out, again, in our e-newsletter that goes out on a monthly basis. So we also encourage with that as well that folks use that to, put it in their PAC newsletters or, send it around to their government relations or staff or other employees. And really, again, just use that as some additional political intelligence and insight.
Great. Thanks, Kristen. And we're always trying to keep up to date on the latest public affairs trends and looking around the corner at what's going to be coming next. This is something that I don't think, at December, any folks thought this was coming, but so we have quickly yet thoughtfully put together a page on our website that has COVID-related resources. I know everyone's inbox has been bombarded with information about COVID-19, but what you're going to find here are public affairs related resources that are going to help you trying to figure out how to navigate this time and the future. And so you'll find links to our free member webinars that we're having that are related to the topic. There are some terrific articles and talking points that our staff have written, links to what other organizations are doing as well. So I would encourage you to you can either just start from the council homepage or follow the link that's on this slide that will take you to some of those specific resources. And I would also encourage you to keep checking in it because while we've loaded it with a lot of helpful information, we will not surprisingly be continuing to add to that. And if there are resources or services that you're not seeing there, especially as it relates to COVID, please do let our staff experts know, and we'll do our best to meet those kind of needs. So how do you get your hands on all these tremendous resources? First, I would encourage you to contact our staff experts to set up a call or a Zoom meeting, even if you don't have a specific request right now. Even to use this time to get to know the staff expert who is working in your particular area. If you're not sure who it is, you can either use the website to help guide you, or more importantly, just ping us at membership@pac.org and we'll help connect you. So Kristen and the folks on her team are working in the areas of PAC and government relations and other types of political involvement. We have other people on our team who focus on international public affairs or issues management or social responsibility, so we can help make those connections with you just so you're starting to develop a relationship. And invariably, even when you don't have a specific question, as the conversations go on, some questions may arise. Secondly, I would encourage you to bop over to our website in the expertise section of pac.org. There are lots of white papers and tip sheets and news articles. However, what you won't find there is our treasure trove of sample materials from member organizations. So throughout the years, our members have very generously donated every type of public affairs document you could possibly imagine. So everything from PAC bylaws to a training manual for grassroots key contacts, sample contract lobbyist contracts, issues management templates. So we have samples of all of those types of documents so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Oftentimes when people have donated them to us, they have just asked us to redact the company name. So we have done that, but we have this whole library of materials available to you so that you're not reinventing the wheel when you're tasked with starting a new type of document. So we, out of an abundance of caution, and frankly, because the collection is so big, we don't keep it on our website, but rather we ask just that you ping the relevant public affairs expert, and then what they will do is send you a curated list of materials, and then you can get back to them and say, yes, this is great, or wasn't quite what I needed. Can you send me more of something that's a little bit different? So again, that's another reason for you to get to know those staff experts. And then finally, to wrap up our expertise section, if you go to our website, there's an engagement form that gives you an opportunity to essentially sign up for a time so that you can connect with our public affairs experts. When we get that form, we'll make an email introduction between you and the staff expert so that you can start making those connections. So that's a lot of information we just threw at you about our expertise. Would again encourage you to use the chat box on the bottom left, or shoot us an email if you have questions about that. But in the meantime, we'll go ahead and move on to our next area, which is executive education. And I'm going to turn the microphone over to my colleague, Stephanie Helsing, who's going to talk a little bit about our ways to make you a smarter public affairs executive. Stephanie?
Great. Thank you, Karen. I appreciate it. So executive education is one of the main things that I think people associate being involved in the Public Affairs Council for and because of. So we have a number of different ways that people can engage with us, and we have a number of different signature events that we feel very strongly about that get very good attendance and always have kind of the same hallmarks, which is what is on this slide right now. So at every single event that you participate in, whether it's a workshop or one of our signature conferences, you'll have peer-to-peer learning, unparalleled networking opportunities, practical advice you can implement immediately. You can walk right out of a session and be able to send something to your office and to your staff or team that can be implemented almost right there on the spot. Benchmarking opportunities with people that are the best in class who have been doing things for a really long time and have a tremendous amount to offer our community. Resource materials to continue your learning, and best-in-class speakers, including some of our staff who are often some of the most popular speakers at our own events. Our signature events, as you see listed, consist of the Public Affairs Institute, which is the Council's flagship leadership program for senior-level public affairs professionals. I think it's going on 30 years in existence, if I'm not incorrect. They've brought together world-class faculty and top public affairs practitioners to address emerging political, economic, social, and technological issues. The Advocacy Conference, which we held this February, is the can't-miss event for anybody who's managing a government relations function, whether it's engaging stakeholders, seeking to advance public policy. Again, participants will learn best practices in grassroots communications and engagement strategies from the profession's top experts. The National PAC Conference is, as it sounds, the most comprehensive program available for political action committee professionals. It combines not only essential skills training with cutting-edge sessions on fundraising, political strategy, communications, and compliance. And again, all of these events have that networking and that peer-to-peer relationship building built into them in the schedules, which I think is really important and also differentiates a lot of what we do at our events from other organizations and associations. The Spring Executive Conference is usually held somewhere in late April. And this, again, is a must-attend event for senior executives from top companies, associations, and other nonprofits and consultancies. It will, again, feature high-level presentations and discussions about politics, business strategy, and emerging issues in the public affairs profession. And then our Digital Media and Advocacy Summit is usually a June event, and it's the leading annual event for digital communications and advocacy professionals. At this event, experts come together to share new strategies, technology innovations, and case studies for energizing grassroots and policy campaigns. And then our normal standard fall event, which we are hoping we will be hosting again in September in person, not virtually, is our State and Local Government Relations Conference. This is actually the gathering for public affairs professionals looking to advance public policy at the state and local levels. So this is where you're going to hear from top legislative strategists, political journalists, state and local policy experts, and leading advocacy professionals. And again, you're going to be able to take information away from these conferences and bring it directly back to your office and put them into immediate practice. So some of the upcoming programs now that actually I do believe have been turned digital, whether it was a workshop that was supposed to be in person in the beginning. On communications, we have diversity and inclusion in public affairs, thought leadership, international, we have managing the world and public affairs in the EU. Again, best practices in government relations, organizations, and budgeting. If you actually go to our COVID-19 page that Karen highlighted before I started speaking, you'll see that in April we have a COVID-19 and PAC webinar coming up, management strategies during a crisis. And then we're also looking forward to hosting a career development and leveraging your network during COVID-19 webinar. So there's lots of really great ways to still stay engaged with us, even though we're all practicing this social distancing. We host 20 plus free webinars and recordings for members. And again, if you have been part of our webinars, you know that they are the highlight of lots of people's day because they get such great information from it. So we can do webinars on anything from visual storytelling for education and persuasion, networking for emerging leaders. Crisis communications was a recent webinar that we did that was actually extremely well attended. And then planning a virtual advocacy day is a webinar that we actually did on March 24th. So for those of you on the line who are members and getting a refresher, you can actually go back and order that. And that actually had our largest webinar participation ever. And so we know that more important now than ever is being able to still continue to offer our expertise and host these webinars and bring these workshops to you where you are. And that is something that we're going to continue to make sure we are doing our best to happen. Certificate programs. Emily, do you want to cover certificate programs, or would you like me to actually talk a little bit about them?
I'm happy to talk a little bit about them.
Okay.
So our certificate programs, you can go ahead and apply for those by an application online. Our colleague Jack actually heads that. So there's two different fields that you can go into. And Stephanie, I feel like you might be better to talk about those different fields.
Certainly. So we do actually have two separate certificate programs. One is PAC and Grassroots Management, and the other is Public Affairs Management. So PAC and Grassroots Management is pretty much focused on what the name says. You're going to be getting a holistic look at some of the public affairs realm, but at some point within this program, you're going to actually be asked to focus more on whether you want information and expertise on PAC or whether you want grassroots as your focus point. I think the average completion time for this is generally between 1.5 years to 3. However, because it is driven by you and your schedule, we actually have had one of our most recent completions was done, I think, in 9 months. So we got to know her very, very well, and she was pretty much at every event we held for a good part of the year. So again, it is really driven by you and your attendance at virtual events that we just talked about and at the conferences all kind of count towards getting the certificate. Public Affairs Management is a little bit more holistic. You're really going to be exposed to all knowledge areas that cover that public affairs realm that Karen talked about in the beginning of our workshop. So all different arms and tentacles that public affairs actually touches, from regulatory procedures and regulatory things that are coming down the pipeline, to how do you lead a team of PAC individuals, and how do you set up a match program, even if that's not necessarily an area that you are focusing on, but it's to really give you a general knowledge of public affairs as a whole. So if you are in charge of a team, it really does behoove you to know what every single member of your team is doing on a daily basis and what their expectations are. That program's a little bit more intensive and takes between 3 to 5 years, I believe, for completion for the average person. But again, that depends on you as an individual. And anybody who has any questions about it, it's a really easy part of to find on our website. So when you go under expertise, I believe, in areas of expertise, and then services, you can find out more about earning a certificate and how to enroll in that. And if you are not a member and you do join within the next 30 days or so, whatever you participated in prior to that will actually count towards your certificate. So that's really exciting for us as well. And we did actually see, I think it was late last year, a job description that was actually posted that said if you had a certificate from one of these programs from us, that you essentially were going to be looked at a little bit more seriously than some other candidates. So we know that what we're offering and what you're learning from these programs really is important to the field of public affairs in general, and that it is being taken very seriously because it's a great way to really pump up your expertise and give yourself a greater knowledge base. There we go. And so how you can access all of our executive education, again, the website is going to probably be your best friend. You can find all of the events. You can download a calendar for the entire year. You can go to the certificate program, again, directly by going to www.pact.org. And you can also, again, reach out to us directly, and we can kind of help focus you on which program might be right for the certificate, or whether or not there's a webinar coming up that you should or should not necessarily spend your time attending. And this is actually where I'm going to turn things over to my colleague, Emily. And once again, as Karen did, I'd like to remind you all that we do have a chat box open. So if you do have any questions about anything, please feel free to ask us now. Otherwise, you will get our contact information again at the end of the webinar, so you can feel free to reach out to us at your leisure. Emily, I'm going to leave you to talk about community. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Stephanie. Yeah, please go ahead and ask any questions down in the chat box. We'd love to hear from you. If you have any specific questions for Kristen even, I'm sure she'd love to answer them. So our third bucket, as Stephanie mentioned, is community. So we have our mentoring program, and this is a year-long mentoring match where you would fill out an application and just kind of let us know what you're looking to gain from the program. This can be based off of your geographic location. So if you want someone in your area that you can actually go and grab that coffee with when we're not on a quarantine lockdown. If you want someone in your specific public affairs field, if you want someone with a little bit more experience than you in your specific role, if you are looking to change roles, if you're looking to get into another industry. So on the application itself, you'll kind of fill out those things, and we will make that meaningful match for you with someone else that's a member of the council. So we are always looking for mentors and mentees. So if you're looking to get a part of this, please just email me and I will go ahead and send you the application. We also have our professional network. So we have our political involvement network that is definitely the most robust and highly involved. We also have our international network, our social responsibility network, association, emerging leaders, and state and government relations network. The State and Government Relations Network just was launched this last year, so we're really excited about that, and it's already growing greatly. And if you register and actually sign up for these networks, you can either do that by just sending us an email or by logging into your account. It's really easy. And then once you've joined, you're going to be with other professionals who share the common interest of just connecting with their peers. We host a lot of events surrounding them. We tap into these networks when we're looking for advisory committee members. And we really ask and encourage all of these folks to take an active leadership role and help us to help our members do it, help us to help our members. We want to make sure that we're always staying on trend and giving you the latest and greatest information. And these are the folks that we always tap into when we're looking for those types of things. We also have our board of directors. So we're governed by about 160-ish top executives. So these folks come from corporate backgrounds, associations, and some of those nonprofit members that Karen mentioned at the very beginning. So we may have the largest board on the planet, but we also have a subset group of that, and that's the executive committee, who really kind of helps us to guide the council in a meaningful way. So each spring we solicit for our board of directors, and you may either nominate yourself or your peer can nominate you, and they serve a 2-year term. And then this year we launched Council Connect, which I'm super excited about. This is our online members-only community, and this is where you can share and learn from your peers like we've never had before. You can just log in using your same username and password that you used when you signed up for this webinar. If you don't know that, any of the council staff are happy to help you figure that out. We have different communities that you can join based off of your interests. We have a lot of our resources are uploaded here. We're going to start housing a lot of our webinar recordings as well. So you can just view them directly in Council Connect without having to download them or wait for an email from us with the webinar recording like we've had to do in the past. So we're really excited about this. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'm kind of the Council Connect guru, so if there's any technical difficulties, I'm happy to help. And then I really encourage you to follow us on social media. We have a lot of great content on these pages. We post LinkedIn articles from staff members. We have YouTube videos that you can share with your members. If you see there, Kristen, I think she's talking about PACs, in corporate PACs. I can't read the text. So there's a couple of those videos that you can use for your own members. And I encourage you to follow us too, just so you're in the loop with the latest and greatest council news. And now I'm going to pass it over to Kristen, and she's going to just walk us through an example of how she's helped a member and what that process kind of looks like.
Great, thank you, Emily. So I know we've talked a lot about, how you all can take advantage of your member benefits and the expertise. And so I just want to walk you through kind of a brief case study of what a day-to-day looks like for myself or one of my colleagues on our practice team as we assist with different member questions and try to help our members work through challenges that they might be having or kind of brainstorm ideas on how to better improve their programs. So the practice team, each year, we answer about 2,000 member requests, and that can be everything from something that's kind of a one-off question, like, hey, can I see some examples of, PAC annual reports, or a question, that we kick over to Ken Gross regarding compliance. But some of the work that we do with members gets a little bit more of a deep dive into really examining and reevaluating their programs and then offering some specific advice or guidance. So I just here on the next slide, Stephanie, do you mind changing the slide for me? I'm having some internet connectivity issues. Thank you so much. So this slide here just shows a little bit of a kind of outlines a case study that I have worked over the past several months with one of our large trade associations on. So they initially reached out. They had recently joined the council and were really, trying to deep dive into how they could use our resources and help get some of their programs, particularly their PAC, a little bit more sophisticated and develop it out a little further. So they reached out to me to brainstorm some ideas about really how they could revive their PAC. It had been dormant for a few years, but they weren't able, they just weren't able to really utilize their political program the way that they'd like and realized that they needed to put a lot more focus into their PAC. So the first step is they reached out, kind of explained, what their challenges were. We had an in-person meeting in our DC office to just kind of brainstorm and for me to learn more and familiarize myself with what their strengths were, what their challenges were, what their goals, at the end for their PAC program were, and, what's a realistic time frame for achieving some of those things. So we identified that their key areas that they were looking for support in were really in the communication side of things, establishing a stronger PAC governance model, and then also they're establishing a peer-to-peer program and just getting some kind of PAC education going. They really hadn't been communicating much with their members at all. So we talked a little bit about a game plan for that. On the previous slide, it shows that I, was sharing a lot of examples with them regarding, what are other PACs doing. This is just an example of the National Association of Broadcasters, their benefits, because we identified that they weren't offering many PAC benefits. So it started with kind of showing them, here's a sample of what other PACs in the space or in the industry are offering to give them some ideas. And then on the next slide, this just outlines some of our other materials that I provided, showing how PACs are communicating, an example of an annual report, just to show the types of education and information that PACs are routinely pushing out. And then also providing a sample PAC education presentation that they were then able to go out and provide to their PAC donors, to their members, and then even to their PAC board, getting them more comfortable with going out and educating and soliciting on behalf of the PAC. So then on the next slide, One of the other ways that we were able to help them was in providing some benchmarking data. Karen mentioned this is a snapshot of some of our 2017 Association PAC benchmarking data, but we did release updated reports in 2019, just last year as well. So this is really, I like to call our PAC benchmarking data is really kind of the Bible that I am constantly referring back to and providing to members when they have specific questions. And often when they're trying to gain internal support for something, it's really powerful to be able to say, this is an industry standard in PAC management. It's a best practice to have incentive clubs for your PAC. Here's how these trends have looked over the past several years, because we have been conducting these benchmarking reports for over 10 or 15 years now. So we have a wealth of data looking back at how trends have changed and how they've remained the same over time. So this is one of the things that really helps them take internally to their team up the chain to say, we need to make some serious changes with our PAC. Here are some examples of what, our peers in the industry are doing and how we can establish ourselves as best practice. And then in the next slide, this was kind of the last component of working with them over the course of several months. I came in and provided a training to their PAC board members. And the goal for this was really to make sure that their board members felt confident in going out and soliciting and being ambassadors of their PAC themselves. So the training really focused on, not only just the importance of having a PAC and why it is so important in, today's advocacy space, but also in getting them familiar with asking for support and with, fundraising and with educating and talking about the PAC and ways that they can better engage folks. So that was a 1-hour in-person training that I did in their DC office for their PAC board that happened to be in town for their fly-in. And I do a lot of these trainings either over webinar or in person. As Karen mentioned, we do a lot of presenting at fly-ins. And particularly now in the current environment, we're looking at ways to, offer this type of training and education, guest speaking through virtual avenues as well. So this hopefully just kind of gives you an idea of how, we can support you, whether it's in, having just kind of a one-off question, or whether it's in really trying to make some wholesale strategic changes to your PAC program, or, maybe to your lobbying approach, or your, communications or stakeholder engagement. My colleagues on the practice team, we all engage in this type of guidance and work with members in our own, respective practice areas. So I always encourage people, please reach out, please introduce yourselves. One of the ways that we can be helpful is through just crowdsourcing and really understanding what folks are dealing with in the space. So, I'm always so happy to hear when you have a success story that you want to share, or, you want to share an experience of something that you hoped would be really impactful and maybe, didn't turn out to be such. So, those kinds of lessons learned are what strengthens our community and really helps us be able to better provide for all of our members. And then I do just want to highlight, lastly, our resource library. A lot of that is actually moved onto Council Connect, as Emily mentioned. So it's a great way to browse and to download resources, in your own time and download them in real time. But the community is wonderful in sharing so many different types of resources that can be an asset to you and your program, like it was for this Association PAC. So please don't hesitate to reach out if myself or any of our practice team can be helpful. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Karen.
Great. Thanks so much, Kristen. I know that we've thrown a tremendous amount of information at you today, but there are a couple of key points that we're hoping that you're going to walk away with. One is that the benefits that are included with your organization's membership convey to everybody throughout your organization. So anyone, for example, at any of your subsidiary companies, folks who are at a European office, at your headquarters office, at your DC office. And so we're hoping that you might help us start a grassroots campaign to make sure that all of your colleagues throughout your organization are aware of these types of resources and benefits. If you found some valuable pieces of information through the council, it's likely that your other colleagues will as well. So you can either shoot us an email and have them added to our distribution list. You can make an email introduction and we'll make sure that they're included. Now, by virtue of the fact that you signed up for this webinar today means you are in our database. You have been assigned a username and password. If you don't know what that information is, you can always go on our website, use the forgot my password prompt, and it will help get you that information. And that is gold, because once you have that, it means you can download resources from the website. It means you can have access to the Council Connect. It opens up a whole fabulous world. So would encourage you to take a few minutes to do that. When you're on that members only portal, you're going to have a number of options. You can register for events, and for all of those webinars that are free for members, this is the place where you're going to be registering for them. If you go into the marketplace, that's where you can download our resource publications like the PAC benchmarking, like our white papers on managing public affairs in the EU, or other surveys that we have. And then if you want to try to customize a bit the type of information that we're sending you, so for example, if you're very interested in international public affairs, but you're really not interested in at all in things related to PAC, go into the My Profile section, and there you'll be able to update some of your preferences to let us know about the areas you're most interested in. So we boiled down all of the information we talked to you about today to what we think are the 6 most important ways that you can get involved. First, as it relates to the expertise area, please go on our website and also on Council Connect to poke around a little bit and look at some of the resources we have there. But really, I would give yourself a goal for the next week or two to connect with at least one of our staff experts so you can get a sense of the kind of ways that they can be assistance to you and to your team. Second, in terms of executive education, is to look at our upcoming events. Again, for the next few months, we've moved everything virtually, so it's even easier to participate. You can do that on the conferences page. And really stop and think about enrolling in one of our certificate programs. You know, this is a time where we all have so much on our mind, but encouraging our colleagues at the council at least to try to carve out some time every day to focus on themselves and their professional development, not only as a way to kind of keep your sanity a little bit, but also to think about when we come out of the other side of this, how can you be an even stronger professional? And participating in some online training and betterment of yourself, I think is really going to help a lot. And then finally, in terms of community building, the mentoring program, we're really going to be trying to kick it in high gear because an awful lot of it can be done remotely. So if you're not a mentor or mentee yet, think about signing up for the program, and also join one of those professional networks. Again, they're free, they're part of your membership, and you can either find community with other people who are working in your particular public affairs area of expertise, whether it's political involvement, international, or social responsibility, or state government relations, or connect with other people who, for example, are working in associations or are our next generation of leaders. So as we wrap up, I'll remind you, you can use that chat box in the lower left-hand side of the screen, or email us at membership@pac.org. I'll also leave you with our contact information. We will be emailing these slides out to you, so you'll have them available for later, but this has all of our contact information. I know we're running up against the end of the hour, so I will leave you with our contact information, a reminder that the council is here for you at all times, and encourage you to reach out and to connect with us, or if you want a refresher on all this, or if you would like us to do an orientation specifically for your organization, we're happy to hop on a call or do a Zoom meeting for the rest of your department to help make sure that they're aware of the resources and services. So with that, I will thank you for your time and attention. We look forward to seeing you virtually, talking to you on the phone. And if you have any questions, please reach out. Thank you. Bye-bye.